Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you guys are doing good so far today. And I am here to do a little bit of talking about the rumor mill. And this rumor is starting to really take form into something a little more solid. In fact, I think we can now officially say there is something here, and this may be something that we have to deal with this offseason. So, there's obviously been some stuff said about some of the Seahawks assistant coaches and positional coaches this offseason. We all know about Desai. We still don't know what's going on with Sean Desai right now. It seems like the big thing that needs to happen is Evero from Denver needs to pick his landing spot because it doesn't seem like he's going to go back to Denver, and it's not yet clear if he's going to be a head coach or a defensive coordinator. If he is going to be a defensive coordinator, it seems like Minnesota is going to try to pick him up. If they can't get him, then I think Desai goes to Minnesota. If Evero goes to Minnesota, then I think we're good. I think we're going to keep Desai for at least one more year. But that is not the only assistant coach that may get a promotion elsewhere in the NFL this offseason. So let's talk about this one. Dave Canales, the Seahawks' current quarterback coach, has now been interviewed by the Ravens, and they liked him so much they're giving him a second interview. He would be their offensive coordinator, which would obviously be a promotion from quarterback coach, and it would be the highest position he had ever held in the NFL. So if the opportunity is there for him to take an OC job, I would fully expect him to take it. So we'll see what the Ravens end up doing here, but it seems like a real possibility now that Dave Canales is at least going to make their final list here. And look, he deserves it. Dave Canales definitely deserves the opportunity to be an OC. But while I'm all for him getting whatever opportunities are out there for him, and it's kind of cool to see a coach that has been on your staff for a long time finally get the opportunity to show what he can do, it would be unfortunate to lose him. So I want to talk about this guy for a little bit here, talk about what he's done. And I think people should understand that this guy's been here as long as Pete Carroll has been here. He has been on the coaching staff for as long as Pete Carroll has. And of all the assistant coaches that have passed through Seattle in Pete Carroll's time, there have been some guys who were really good and went on to become head coaches. There have been some guys who did a very good job over an extended period of time. But Dave Canales is, I'm not going to say he's the best assistant coach we've had in the Pete Carroll era, but when you consider how long he's been here and all the positive things he's been attached to, it's not that ridiculous. So I pulled up his Wikipedia page. Let's take a look at the hats that he has worn during his time in Seattle. So when he came over from USC, so he was actually part of Carroll's staff at USC in 2009, he immediately jumped on the position of wide receiver coach. And I want to walk people through this because of all the positional coaches on the team over that time period from 2010 to 2017, I don't think that any position was developed as well as wide receiver outside of maybe like cornerback, right? And cornerback, we all know where that comes from. But Dave Canales was the wide receiver coach from 2010 to 2017. If you look at the receivers he was going to initially inherit from 2009, let's take a look at this just to get an idea of the job he had in front of him. The top receivers on the team in 2009: TJ Hushmanzada, Nate Burleson, Dion Branch. Those were the prolific receivers on the 2009 team. 2010, Canales' first year, who was it? Mike Williams, Dion Butler, and Brandon Stokely, with Ben Obomanu as a very close to third, fourth place in receptions. This was the first year for Golden Tate. This was his rookie year in the league. Dion Branch was basically an afterthought. He only played in 4 games for the Seahawks in 2010, and then I think we traded him back to New England. So, complete overhaul in the receiver room when Canales showed up. He didn't inherit anything good. He didn't pick up anything left behind that was positive, except for maybe Dion Butler, and that was not even that good itself. He had less than 400 receiving yards in 2010. So he inherited nothing, and he had to work with a bunch of, I mean, I'm sorry to say, but he had to work with a bunch of spare parts here. And one interesting developmental guy in Golden Tate who was clearly not really ready to play in the NFL. So you move along. 2011, Doug Baldwin shows up as a UDFA and starts to develop into. He was our number one receiver in 2011, and he led the team in all three receiving categories. And this was again as a UDFA rookie. Golden Tate started to develop and started to show signs of becoming a quality receiver in the NFL one day. We did bring in Sidney Rice. Now, he was a little bit of a disappointment. He never really got going the way we were hoping, but that was mostly because of injury. He only played 9 games. He basically missed almost half the season in 2011. You move forward to 2012, and the 1 year Sidney Rice was actually relatively healthy. He was fairly productive, not great, but you saw Golden Tate develop even further, and basically, you can start to see things go forward. Golden Tate was somebody that Canales brought in with him when he came in. Basically, you sign Canales to be your receiver coach, and the first big toy that you give him is the Golden Tate pick. Golden Tate goes from a super raw rookie who can barely play on offense to a player who ended up being our most prolific receiver the year we won the Super Bowl. You can see the development going. You can see the development going on a guy like Doug Baldwin, where he immediately goes into the NFL as a UDFA and starts putting up nice numbers. You can see that the big free agency signing that we gave Canales during this time, Sidney Rice, really didn't work out mostly because of injury, I think. I think Sidney Rice probably would have been a pretty good Seahawk and would have been more prolific if he had just been able to avoid injuries. But you can see the development of Golden Tate. You can see the development of Doug Baldwin. You get to 2013, Golden Tate is now a full-on number one receiver. Not a Pro Bowl caliber receiver yet, but the development is clear. Doug Baldwin has developed into a good number 2 receiver. He had a good year this year. We won the Super Bowl. And Jermaine Kearse, who was a rookie in 2012 and caught a few passes, starts to develop into a viable wide receiver 3 role, especially with the ultimate season-ending injury that Sidney Rice suffered. I think he had like one good game in 2013, and that was it. So you can see he is making things work without a whole lot behind it. Doug Baldwin and Jermaine Kearse, both UDFAs. Now, Golden Tate was a blue chipper, but he was also somebody you knew you had to develop, and he was developed very well to the point where he was the best receiver on a team that won the Super Bowl. 2014, Doug Baldwin continues to ascend. And remember, this was the year where Sidney Rice retired in the offseason, number 1, and number 2, Percy Harvin lost his mind like 5 games into the year. We had to trade him, but gave him away. So that was an experiment that ended up not really working out at all not because of anything to do with Canales. It had to do with Percy Harvin as a human being and injuries. So again, the attempt to bring in the top-end blue-chip talent for Canales to work with at receiver continues to fall flat. He ends up having to spend most of the year with his 2 best receivers being UDFAs that he developed from absolute scratch, Baldwin and Kearse. And Richardson, that was a second-round pick. That was an attempt to give him a borderline blue chipper. He got hurt, too. He was actually playing fairly well in his rookie year, producing, and then he got hurt in, I believe, the postseason game. And then you go to 2015. Doug Baldwin is now a full-fledged number 1, has a 1,000-yard season, and this is the year when you bring in Tyler Lockett. Lockett has a really nice rookie year, over 50 catches. Jermaine Kearse probably has his best year as a pro, almost 50 catches. So look at what he's doing with some of these guys. Just absolutely awesome development of some of these players who came into the league with low expectations or no expectations. Like genuinely Baldwin and Kearse could have ended up car insurance salesman in a slightly different timeline. Lockett was a 3rd-round pick, okay, but he wasn't a blue chipper when he came in. People didn't look at Tyler Lockett and go, that's a guaranteed future Pro Bowl caliber receiver. And immediately you're getting good results out of him. 2016, Baldwin has probably his best year as a pro. He makes the Pro Bowl, has over 1,100 yards. You've got Tyler Lockett, who admittedly did break his leg at the end of the year, but again, this shows a lot of the problems the Seahawks had at receiver during this time were injury related, not player related. Like, We got what we could out of some guys like Jermaine Kearse, although this was not a particularly great year for Jermaine Kearse, but we got what we could. And you had Paul Richardson still battling his own injuries. And then you get to 2017, Baldwin is on his last legs. He still almost has 1,000 yards. Lockett ends up having a pretty good year, over 550 yards. Finally, Paul Richardson breaks out. He finally puts together a healthy season, has 700 yards. And looking at where you started and looking at what you ended up giving Canales, he did a pretty phenomenal job. And admittedly, Lockett didn't become a super prolific receiver until the next year, 2018. But you have to give Canales a lot of credit for the development of Lockett, allowing him to become a super prolific receiver, having 1,000+ yards pretty much every year. And a big reason why Lockett wasn't before this point was because he was behind Doug Baldwin. And Doug Baldwin, up to this season, was the number 1,000-yard guy that you could depend on. So at this point, Canales moved on to be the quarterback coach. And look, I'm not going to say Wilson was bad in 2017, but I wasn't really happy with the way he was playing. I thought that he played very out of control and chaotic. I thought he was doing a lot of negative things. And I thought that the box score stats were very deceiving. And after 2017, even though he put up good numbers and led the league in touchdown passes, I remember looking at Wilson and going, I don't know what we have right now. I don't know if this is fixable, but I don't believe he's playing good football right now. So you come back in 2018, new quarterback coach, Canales, and what a difference. Wilson's completion percentage goes way up. His touchdown to turnover ratio goes up. His QB rating goes up significantly. He has maybe his second best year as a pro after 2015. So, wow, what a difference that Dave Canales made. And then 2019, which was Canales' second year as Wilson's QB coach, everything goes up again, and he would have won MVP if not for Lamar Jackson. So Wilson had two of his most outstanding years when Canales took over that QB coach role. Now, at that point, he became the passing game coordinator. And this one, little bit of a mixed bag here. Like in 2020, the passing game started out on fire. The first, I want to say like 7 games, the passing game was a dream come true. Then it slowed down. Then it got kind of stale. It got kind of lame. I don't know how much to put on a guy like Canales for that. Like, there was Schottenheimer involved in that. There was Wilson's regression as a player. There was a lot of other stuff going on there other than just Canales, admittedly. But you look at the body of work in 2020, you would still say, hey, DK Metcalf broke a bunch of franchise records for a receiver. Lockett had 100 catches. There was some really cool stuff going on with in the passing game in particular that year. I'm not here to take anything away from that. 2021, you've got a new offensive coordinator. You've got a quarterback who plays part of the season injured, and you've got the backup coming in for a few games, and da-da-da, and da-da-da, and da-da-da, and da-da-da. It wasn't very good, admittedly. The passing game in 2021 was not particularly good. Again, a lot of reasons why that could be, but the most explosive and most prolific season that the passing game in Seattle has ever had was probably 2020, despite the second half slip. So you can give Canales some credit for that. And then this is probably the big one that now has Canales on the potential offensive coordinator seat. He went back to being the quarterback coach in 2022, and Geno Smith, a guy who had never really been good in his career at all, a guy who had never really done anything good in the NFL, like even his volume stats were a distant memory. He hadn't played significant football since 2014. Has the best year of his career by far. Leads the league in completion percentage. Makes the Pro Bowl. Plays every game. Plays every snap. Gets his team to the playoffs. Has a top 10 offense. Wow. What a difference. So, Canales has done great work for Seattle. He deserves the opportunity to become an offensive coordinator in this league. And I wish him the best if he does get the job at Baltimore. But, selfishly, I hope he sticks around because, I mean, he's good. He's clearly done awesome stuff here. You look at a lot of the Seahawks players who have been positive contributors over the Pete Carroll era, you can link a lot of their success to Canales. Wilson, Lockett, Baldwin, Tate, Geno, a lot of this stuff goes back to Canales. So let me know what you guys think about all this. Hope he sticks around, but I understand that You got to keep moving forward in this league. You got to take the promotion when it's there. And this is a guy who deserves the opportunity to get promoted, maybe more than just about anybody else on this staff. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks. We'll see what happens with Dave Canales.